Library Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Chapter 78 The Killing of Dantavakra, Vidūratha and Romaharṣaṇa after the demise of Sisupala, Salva, and Pondraka, a foolish demoniac king of the name Dantavakra wanted to kill Krishna to avenge the death of his friend Salva. He became so agitated that he appeared on the battlefield without the proper arms and ammunition and without even a chariot. His only weapon was his great anger, which was red hot. He carried only a club in his hand, but he was so powerful that when he moved, everyone felt the earth tremble. When Lord Krishna saw him approaching in a very heroic mood, he immediately got down from his chariot, for it was a rule of military etiquette that fighting should take place only between equals. Knowing that Dantavakra was alone and armed with only a club, Lord Krishna responded similarly and prepared himself by taking his club in his hand. When Krishna appeared before him, Dantavakra's heroic march was immediately stopped, just as the great, furious waves of the ocean are stopped by the beach. At that time, Dantavakra, who was the king of Kṛṣṇa, stood firmly with his club and spoke to Lord Krishna as follows: "It is a great pleasure and fortunate opportunity, Krishna, that we are seeing each other face to face. My dear Krishna, after all, you are my maternal cousin, and I should not kill you in this way, but unfortunately you have committed a great mistake by killing my friend Salva. Moreover, you are not satisfied by killing my friend, I know that you want to kill me also. Because of your determination, I must kill you by tearing you to pieces with my club. Krishna, although you are my relative, you are foolish. You are our greatest enemy, so I must kill you today just as a person removes a boil on his body by a surgical operation. I am always very much obliged to my friends, and I therefore consider myself indebted to my dear friend Salva. I can liquidate my indebtedness to him only by killing you." As the caretaker of an elephant tries to control the animal by striking it with his trident, Dantavakra tried to control Krishna simply by speaking strong words. After finishing his vituperation, he struck Krishna on the head with his club and made a roaring sound like a lion, but Krishna, although struck strongly by the club of Dantavakra, did not move even an inch, nor did he feel any pain. Taking his Kaumodaki club and moving very skillfully, Krishna struck Dantavakra's chest so fiercely that Dantavakra's heart split in twain. As a result, Dantavakra began to vomit blood, his hair scattered, and he fell to the ground, spreading his hands and legs. Within only a few minutes all that remained of Dantavakra was a dead body on the ground. After the death of Dantavakra, just as at the time of Sisupala's death, in the presence of all the persons standing there a small particle of spiritual effulgence came out of the demon's body and very wonderfully merged into the body of Lord Krishna. Dantavakra had a brother named Vidūratha, who was overwhelmed with grief at Dantavakra's death. Out of grief and anger, Vidūratha was breathing very heavily, and just to avenge the death of his brother he appeared before Lord Krishna with a sword and a shield in his hands. He wanted to kill Krishna immediately. When Lord Krishna understood that Vidūratha was looking for the opportunity to strike him with his sword, he employed his Sudarsana Chakra, his razor-sharp disc, and without delay cut off Vidūratha's head, with its helmet and earrings. In this way, after killing Salva and destroying his wonderful airplane and then killing Dantavakra and Vidūratha, Lord Krishna at last entered his city, Dvaraka. It would not have been possible for anyone but Krishna to kill these great heroes, and therefore all the demigods from heaven and the human beings on the surface of the globe were glorifying him. Great sages and ascetics, the denizens of the Siddha and Gandharva planets, the denizens known as Vidyadharas, Vasuki and the Mahanagas, the beautiful angels, the inhabitants of Pitraloka, the Yaksas, the Kinnaras and the Karanas all showered flowers upon him and sang songs of his victory in great jubilation. Decorating the entire city very festively, the citizens of Dvaraka held a great celebration, and when Lord Krishna passed through the city, all the members of the Vrisni dynasty and the heroes of the Yadu dynasty followed him with great respect. These are some of the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, the master of all mystic power and the lord of all cosmic manifestations. Those who are fools, who are like animals, sometimes think that Krishna is defeated, but factually he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no one can defeat him. He always remains victorious over everyone. He alone is God, and all others are his subservient order carriers. Once upon a time, Lord Balarama heard that an arrangement was being made for a fight between the two rival parties in the Kuru dynasty, one headed by Duryodhana and the other by the Pandavas. He did not like the idea, and he tried to act as a mediator to stop the fighting. Finding it impossible, and not wishing to take an active part on behalf of either party, he left Dvaraka on the plea of visiting various holy places of pilgrimage. He first of all visited the place of pilgrimage known as Prabhas etc. He took his bath there, and he pacified the local brahmanas and offered oblations to the demigods, Pitas, great sages and people in general, in accordance with Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. That is the Vedic method of visiting holy places. After this, accompanied by some respectable brahmanas, he decided to visit different places on the bank of the river Sarasvati. He gradually visited such places as Prathudaka, Bindusara, Tritikupa, Sudarsana-tirtha, Visala-tirtha, Brahma-tirtha and Chakra-tirtha. Besides these, he also visited all the holy places on the bank of the Sarasvati river running toward the east. After this he visited all the principal holy places on the bank of the Yamuna and on the bank of the Ganges. Thus he gradually came to the holy place known as Naimisaranya. Naimisaranya is still existing in India, and in ancient times it was especially used for the meetings of great sages and saintly persons with the aim of understanding spiritual life and self-realization. When Lord Balarama visited that place there was a great sacrifice being performed by a great assembly of transcendentalists. Such meetings were planned to last thousands of years. When Lord Balarama arrived, all the participants in the meeting, great sages, ascetics, brahmanas and learned scholars, immediately arose from their seats and welcomed him with great honor and respect. Some offered him respects by standing up and then paying obeisances, and those who were elderly great sages and brahmanas offered him blessings after standing up. After this formality, Lord Balarama was offered a suitable seat, and everyone present worshipped him. Everyone in the assembly stood up in the presence of Balarama because they knew him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Education or learning means to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although Lord Balarama appeared on the earth as a Kshatriya, all the brahmanas and sages stood up because they knew who Lord Balarama was. Unfortunately, after being worshipped and seated in his place, Lord Balarama saw Romaharṣaṇa, the disciple of Vyāsadeva, the literary incarnation of Godhead, still sitting on the Vyāsaṣana. He had neither gotten up from his seat nor offered him respects. Because he was seated on the Vyāsaṣana, he foolishly thought himself greater than the Lord. Therefore he did not get down from his seat or bow down before the Lord. Lord Balarama then considered the history of Romaharṣaṇa. He was born in a Sudha family, or a mixed family, born of a Brahmana woman and a Kshatriya man. Therefore although Romaharṣaṇa considered Balarama a Kshatriya, he should not have remained sitting on a higher seat. According to his position by birth he should not even have accepted the higher sitting position, because many learned brahmanas and sages were present. Lord Balarama also observed that Romaharṣaṇa not only refused to come down from his exalted seat but did not even stand up and offer his respects when Balaramaji entered the assembly. Lord Balarama did not like the audacity of Romaharṣaṇa and, becoming very angry at him, declared from his seat, "This man, Romaharṣaṇa, is so impudent that he has accepted a higher seat than that of all the respectable brahmanas present here, although he was born in a degraded Pradaloma family." When a person is seated on the Vyāsaṣana, he does not generally have to stand to receive a particular person entering the assembly, but in this case the situation was different because Lord Baladeva is not an ordinary human being. Therefore, although Romaharṣaṇa Sutta was voted to the Vyāsaṣana by all the brahmanas, he should have followed the behavior of other learned sages and brahmanas present and should have known that Lord Balarama is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Respects are always due him, even though such respects can be avoided in the case of an ordinary man. The appearance of Krishna and Balarama is especially meant for re-establishment of the religious principles. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the highest religious principle is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam also confirms that the topmost perfection of religion is to be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. When Lord Balarama saw that Romaharṣaṇa Sutta did not understand the highest principle of religion in spite of his having studied all the Vedas, he certainly could not support his position. Romaharṣaṇa Sutta had been given the chance to become a perfect Brahmana, but because of his ill behavior and his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his low birth was immediately remembered. Romaharṣaṇa Sutta had been given the position of a Brahmana, but he had not been born in the family of a Brahmana, he had been born in a Pradaloma family. According to the Vedic concept, there are two kinds of mixed family heritage, called Anuloma and Pradaloma. When a male is united with a female of a lower caste, the offspring is called Anuloma. But when a male unites with a woman of a higher caste, the offspring is called Pradaloma. Romaharṣaṇa Sutta belonged to a Pradaloma family because his father was a Kshatriya and his mother a Brahmana. Because Romaharṣaṇa's transcendental realization was not perfect, Lord Balarama remembered his Pradaloma heritage. The idea is that any man may be given the chance to become a Brahmana, but if he improperly uses the position of a Brahmana without actual realization, then his elevation to the Brahminical position is not valid. After seeing the deficiency of realization in Romaharṣaṇa Sutta, Lord Balarama decided to chastise him for being puffed up. Lord Balarama therefore said, "This man is liable to be awarded the death punishment because although he has the good qualification of being a disciple of Lord Vyāsadeva, and although he has studied all the Vedic literature from this exalted personality, he was not submissive in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, a person who is actually a Brahmana and is very learned must automatically become very gentle also." But although Romaharṣaṇa Sutta was very learned and had been given the chance to become a Brahmana, he had not become gentle. From this we can understand that one who is puffed up by material acquisitions cannot acquire the gentle behavior befitting a Brahmana. The learning of such a person is as good as a valuable jewel decorating the hood of a serpent. Despite the valuable jewel on the hood, a serpent is still a serpent and is as fearful as an ordinary serpent. If a person does not become meek and humble, all his studies of the Vedas and Puranas and his vast knowledge of the Sastras are simply outward dress, like the costume of a theatrical artist dancing on the stage. Lord Balarama considered, "I have appeared in order to chastise false persons who are internally impure but externally pose themselves as very learned and religious. My killing of such persons is proper, to check them from further sinful activity." Lord Balarama had avoided taking part in the battle of Kurukshetra, and yet because of his position as an incarnation, the re-establishment of religious principles was his prime duty. Considering these points, he killed Romaharṣaṇa Sutta simply by striking him with a kusa straw, which was nothing but a blade of grass. If someone questions how Lord Balarama could kill Romaharṣaṇa Sutta simply by striking him with a blade of kusa grass, the answer is given in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by the use of the word Prabhu, Master. The Lord's position is always transcendental, and because he is omnipotent he can act as he likes, without being obliged to follow the material laws and principles. Thus it was possible for him to kill Romaharṣaṇa Sutta simply by striking him with a blade of kusa grass. At the death of Romaharṣaṇa Sutta, everyone present became much aggrieved and cried out, "Alas! Alas!" Although all the Brahmanas and sages present knew Lord Balarama to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they did not hesitate to protest the Lord's action. They humbly submitted, "Our dear Lord, we think that your action is not in line with the religious principles. Dear Lord Yajunandana, we may inform you that we Brahmanas posted Romaharṣaṇa Sutta on that exalted position for the duration of this great sacrifice. He was seated on the Vyāsadeva by our election, and when one is seated on the Vyāsadeva, it is improper for him to stand up to receive a person. Moreover, we awarded Romaharṣaṇa Sutta an undisturbed duration of life. Under the circumstances, since your lordship has killed him without knowing all these facts, we think that your action is equal to killing a Brahmana. Dear Lord, deliverer of all fallen souls, we know for certain that you are the knower of all Vedic principles. You are the master of all mystic powers, therefore the Vedic injunctions cannot ordinarily be applied to you. But we respectfully advise you to show your causeless mercy upon others by kindly atoning for this killing of Romaharṣaṇa Sutta. We do not, however, suggest what kind of act you should perform to atone for killing him, we simply suggest that you adopt some method of atonement so that others may follow your action. What is done by a great personality is followed by the ordinary man." The Lord replied, "Yes, I must atone for this action, which may have been proper for me but is improper for others, therefore, I think it is my duty to execute a suitable act of atonement enjoined in the authorized scriptures. Simultaneously I can also give this Romaharṣaṇa Sutta life again, with a span of long duration, sufficient strength and full power of the senses. Not only this, but if you desire I shall be glad to award him anything else you may ask. I shall be very glad to grant all these boons to fulfill your desires." This statement by Lord Balarama definitely confirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is free to act in any way. Although his killing of Romaharṣaṇa Sutta may be considered improper, he could immediately counteract it with greater profit to all. Therefore, one should not imitate the actions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should simply follow the instructions of the Lord. All the great, learned sages present realized that although they considered the action of Lord Balarama improper, the Lord was immediately able to compensate with greater profits. Not wanting to detract from the mission of the Lord in killing Romaharṣaṇa Sutta, all of them prayed, "Our dear Lord, the uncommon use of your kusa weapon to kill Romaharṣaṇa Sutta may remain as it is, because you desired to kill him, he should not be brought to life again. At the same time, your lordship may remember that we sages and Brahmanas voluntarily gave him long life, therefore, such a benediction should not be nullified." Thus the request of all the learned Brahmanas in the assembly was ambiguous because they wanted to keep intact their benediction that Romaharṣaṇa Sutta would continue to live until the end of the great sacrifice, but at the same time they did not want to nullify Balarama's killing him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead therefore solved the problem in a manner befitting his exalted position. He said, Because the Son is produced from the body of the Father, the Vedas enjoin that the Son is the Father's representative. Therefore I say that Ugrasrava the son of Romaharṣaṇa should henceforth take his father's position and continue the discourses on the Puranas, and because you wanted Romaharṣaṇa to have a long duration of life, this benediction will be transferred to his son. The son, Ugrasrava, will therefore have all the facilities you offered, a long duration of life in a good and healthy body, with no disturbances and full strength of all the senses. Lord Balarama then implored all the sages and brahmanas that aside from the benediction offered to the son of Romaharṣaṇa, they should ask from him any other benediction, and he would be prepared to fulfill it immediately. The Lord thus placed himself in the position of an ordinary Kshatriya and informed the sages that he did not know in what way he could atone for his killing of Romaharṣaṇa, but whatever they would suggest he would be glad to accept. The brahmanas could understand the purpose of the Lord, and thus they suggested that he atone in a manner beneficial to them. They said, "Our dear Lord, there is a very powerful demon of the name Belvala. He is the son of Ilvala, and he visits this sacred place of sacrifice every fortnight on the full moon and moonless days and creates a great disturbance to the discharge of our duties in the sacrifice. O descendant of the Dasarha family, we all request you to kill this demon. We think that if you kindly kill him, that will be your atonement on our behalf. The demon occasionally comes here and profusely throws upon us contaminated, impure things like pus, blood, stool, urine and wine. He pollutes this sacred place by showering such filth upon us. After killing Balvala, you may continue touring all the sacred places of pilgrimage for 12 months, and in that way you will be completely freed from all contamination. That is our prescription." Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 78th chapter of Krishna, the killing of Dantavakra, Vidūratha, and Romaharṣaṇa.